A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome in to One Giant Step. It's mid-July. It's training camp time. And Bryce, Gelman, and myself, Shaun, Morash, are going to have you covered from this point forward, like we have all year, but really through the entirety of the New York Giants season. So if you're just joining One Giant Step for the first time, maybe it's All-Star break and you're like, I want to get my football fix. What's here on the Audacy App? Oh, what's One Giant Step? Welcome aboard. I'm Shaun Morash from the Evan and Tiki Show. I'm joined each and every week by my co-host and producer of One Giant Step, Bryce Gelman. He's a younger Giant fan than me. I am, unfortunately, salt and pepper bearded Giant fan alike. This is a podcast for Giants fans by Giants fans, out each and every week. You can download, subscribe again everywhere podcasts are available and free on the Audacy app. Check us out on YouTube as well on the WFAN page. How this is going to work. The rookies have reported to training camp. It's minor orientation stuff. They kind of get their feet wet, learn the building like they already did anyway. And then next week, we will be doing a One Giant Step after training camp has already begun. What those storylines materialize from camp each and every week from here on out, we don't know. We're going to have an idea for you each and every week to kind of update you, maybe just do some general topics and what's going on and stuff we'd like to see. And that's kind of what training camp's going to be. I'm going to head out to camp a couple times. I'll, hopefully give you some insight back on what I saw, my feelings around the team and whatnot. And we're going to go through these next 6 weeks or so, and you're going to have preseason games alike and whatnot. And then you're going to wake up and you're going to go, oh my God, the NFL season is here. At which time Bryce and I will definitively give you 2 podcasts a week at the least. A recap podcast, kind of a looking in podcast. If a week calls for a third podcast, all right, sure. Then we'll do it depending on how this season goes. Bryce and I have lived through some terrible Giants football. We're hoping to live through some much better football this year, or at least more interesting football, even if the wins aren't necessarily there. So, look, that's what we provide you each and every week. Hopefully some good insight, hopefully some good banter, hopefully some good debate. We're not always going to agree. We're not always going to disagree. And we're not going to force disagreements that aren't there for the sake of it. We're just going to chop it up like 2 guys on a bar stool talking Giant football each and every week. So, again, if you're a longtime listener, of which I've met plenty at Fanatics Fest a couple weeks ago, thank you for everybody that said hello. Thank you. Welcome. And let's keep listening. But it's kind of the unofficial. You're going to hear me probably do this about 4 other times before the season starts, when the preseason games start, then before the regular season, cut down day. I've done this long enough to know the parameters of when more people come in searching for football content. But this is our soft opening to the 2025 New York Giants season because you're starting to see guys report to camp. So, Bryce, hello. How are you? Hope that was a good enough preamble to kind of set the scene on what we're about to encounter, or at least begin. Encounter is the wrong word. Begin here on this 2025 campaign on One Giant Step.
I'm doing well, Shaun. I'm doing well, Shaun. Thanks for asking. Listen, I'm stoked. It's been a long off season. We put out some great content. I have nothing to add what you just said there, but we put out some good content for what we were given. We've reacted to a small amount of news that's happened throughout that as well. We've done some evergreen podcasts, what we want to do with Kayvon Thibodeau. We've also done, our top 10 Giants at the end of 2025, a bunch of different things that you can go back and check out. They're not, they weren't necessarily newsworthy for the time. They're evergreen. You can watch them now. Very interesting stuff. So it's good that we finally can react and talk about current events, stuff that's actually going on. I'm excited to get back into it, Shaun.
Exactly. So the basis of this podcast is Bryce and myself have each compiled a list of which we did not share with each other, just from our own brains, on the 3 things we would like to see by the end of this training camp with the New York Giants. Okay. Now, I didn't tell Bryce what not to include, what to include. I'm just going to tell you the most obvious answer that anybody will give is, I want to see the Giants end training camp healthy, no big injuries. I didn't include that on my list. If Bryce did, I'm not going to rain on his parade. That should, to me, thank God you did, Bryce, because that should, to me,
of course,
it's a given, no doubt. So this is more supposed to be, kind of integral, whether it's roster battles, surprises, whatever. Training camp's about to begin here. The rookies have reported the 3 things, and maybe we can revisit this list at the end of camp and go, did they accomplish any of these 3 things? So I'm going to be fair. Mine, I guess, is a 3-2-1 in order, but really I could shake it up in any which way. I think maybe we just go 1 for 1 here and see where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So my first one, I guess I'm going to rank it number 3. Of the 3
Is this in order, or is this any specific order?
Mine is in order, but again, it's not like a hard and fast order.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right. So my number 3 thing, I do not want to see by the end of camp Deonte Banks lose his second cornerback job to Cordell Flott.
Yeah.
Okay. So why, if you're just kind of parachuting in here as a Giants fan, you've been, into the Knicks run and baseball a lot. Why is this even on the table? Deonte Banks is no longer the number 1 corner. A lot of us could breathe a sigh of relief. They signed Paulson and Debo to be so. Deonte Banks probably is better suited to be a number 2 corner, of which he was fine the year before. He didn't really mesh well last year, and this is still a first-round pick and a pretty big investment. Cordell Flott was starting to get reps in those OTAs and mini camps as another starting corner, and I don't know if that was more of a message to Deonte Banks. Hey, not everything's a given to you. We've signed Paulson and Debo here. You got to go out and earn it, of which I understand the coaching aspect of it. Or if maybe Cordell Flott was flying around and doing a good job. I think Cordell Flott is a playable NFL corner, and
yeah.
I think that's fine as a third-round pick. I think that we've lived through some highs and lows. I think their drafting last year of Drew Phillips kind of effectively ended the idea that Cordell Flott was the future nickel corner on this team. And it's so weird when he was drafted, Bryce, with Cordell Flott, everybody said he's going to be a nickel, he's going to be a nickel. And then anytime he's flashed at times on the field, it's clearly been on the outside. He even made that play in his rookie year in the playoff game, coming off the bench. This is not a knock on Flott, but it's more of an expectation for Deonte Banks. If by the end of the year, these mini camp and OTA reps we've already seen become a reality, while I'll be excited that Cordell Flott has grabbed the reins, I will always truthfully believe in the back of my mind it has more to do with the disappointment that Deonte Banks is. I don't want to see another first-round pick completely fail. If you're a cornerback picked in the 20s and you're just a solid number 2 corner, that is not a bust of a pick, which would mean that you didn't fail on Deonte Banks' pick. He just wasn't a big-time number 1 corner, but a starting corner, fine. You live with that. So my first thing, Bryce, I don't want to see Flott win the job from Banks because I think that would be an indictment on another failed first-round pick.
100%. I mean, I just piggybacking up what you're saying. It's not a part of my list, but I think I totally agree in that sentiment. The idea that a third-round pick should now play what has been, you might be able to say, the second biggest bust of the Joe Schoen, Brian Dable era behind Evan Neal. He's been, I can't even say streaky. He's been consistently inconsistent, Deonte Banks. He's been the target of a lot of different criticisms on this podcast, for me specifically. It's been very frustrating to watch his lack of development going into now his 3rd year. He's got an opportunity to prove that, of course, in training camp. I like that being a part of your list. Number 3 for me, I'm going to get it out of the way. You shouldn't be surprised by this. The listeners, the viewers shouldn't be surprised by this at all. I want Evan Neal to win the right guard position. I want him to win it outright. I want Van Roten to become a depth rotational piece, and I want Evan Neal to prove in training camp that he is good enough to take the starting right guard position and essentially vindicate Joe Schoen and Brian Dable. And it's kind of like a two-way street here, because on one side, it's like there's incompetence in the fact that they, if he does get the starting right guard position, there's the incompetence that they didn't move him early enough. But then there's also the vindication, the idea that they didn't completely botch that pick and they salvaged something out of what Evan Neal is. So I think that that's huge for me, because I look at that and I could say to everyone, and, not just necessarily me, but, Joe Schoen and Brian Dable, like, hey, we didn't totally screw up that pick. We salvaged what was a number 7 pick in the NFL draft, a can't miss pick, especially in that spot that they were at. That was, that was a must. I mean, I'm not going to say like a must win, like, like must not bust. I know that doesn't
must not bust. Okay.
Not bust. That's a good one. That's a good one for me. But no, I mean, you can't pick a guy in that spot and not try to utilize his best talent. And you could say that he might be a better fit at right guard. I want to see that. I want to see it to believe it.
So formatically, I'm glad that I didn't go the 1-2-3 method. I'm just going to jump in here and switch up my list. That was my number 1. My number 1 thing I'd like to see by the end of the camp is Evan Neal win the guard job. And I've hated on Evan Neal plenty. But the reason that would be number 1 for me, and I'm going to make it my number 2 just so we don't really convolute this, is a lot of the things you just said. You invest that kind of money in a first-round pick. I have already written him off as a bust. Okay?
Yeah,
so
I mean, you're not alone in that sentiment.
Right. So it's not going to break my heart at the end of camp if Evan Neal doesn't win the starting guard job. In fact, I don't believe he will win this job.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that it will be Greg Van Roten. I don't trust enough that Evan Neal is going to own that. However, if he does, and it has everything to do with his play and not regression from an older Greg Van Roten, then to me, I'm going to look at the wizard offensive line coach we hired last year in Carmen Brasillo and go, okay, you've done the job here. I've seen you kind of salvage some careers in Las Vegas. You're doing the job here at the New York Giants. So for me, absolutely, it's on my list. And I think that if you walk away at the end of camp going, wow, Neal impressed, Neal moved bodies. And part of that, by the way, Neal's going to have to play a lot of reps in the preseason games too. At the end of camp, Bryce, if a lot of the practices we don't have the privilege of seeing and we just live and die by the highlights sent out, a lot of which are not offensive line
propaganda.
reps. Right, and we don't get a lot of preseason reps from Evan Neal where they're kind of like playing the ones but really going 3s and 4s. If it's that kind of camp in preseason for the Giants, it's going to be hard for me to even trust the organization that he truly earned it and that I should be excited. Like I want to go into week 1 going, man, I saw Evan Neal play a bunch of games in the preseason. Fine, maybe he's not going through versus top pass rushers, but he looked the part. I'm excited to see him start at guard. So, yeah, that's absolutely the next one on my list as well. So you might as well give your number 2.
I mean, let me just say this. I feel like in the 4th season of Evan Neal, they're not going to try to force it. And they're not going to try to force the issue if he wins the starting job. I think he would deserve it. I think that they wouldn't just throw him out there. It's not like he's got to get reps. He's got it's his 4th year. They declined his 5th year option. This is kind of a make or break spot for him. They're not going to throw at a guy with that much to lose. And for them, a lot riding on that if they don't think he's ready. So I just think, it's the same thing, with Anthony Volpe, which is different. We saw him throughout spring training. He won the job. He won the starting shortstop job in 2023. But if the Yankees didn't feel he was ready, they wouldn't have, given him that position. So I think it's similar, even though we're obviously going to see less from Evan Neal than we saw from Anthony Volpe televised most of the time. So number 2 for me is I think that it's going to happen, whether he deserves it or not. I just think it makes the most sense. I want Jackson Dart to outright win the backup quarterback position, the backup quarterback spot. I think.
Oh, okay.
Considering the fact that he's a rookie, he obviously the Giants want to develop him. He's going to be the backup. You like to believe, because 10, 11 weeks in, they're not going to go to Jameis Winston. They're going to go to Jackson Dart. But I want to see on the depth chart with my own eyes, Jackson Dart being the backup. He's the guy. Russell Wilson early on in the year, if he gets hurt, you go to Dart. You don't go to Jameis Winston. You go straight to Dart. I want to see the competence from him. And listen, I think it's very difficult to predict, the future and the development of a guy like that, especially early on in his career, training camp in his first season. I don't think any of us expect him to be this revelation in training camp. Like, oh my God, this guy is like what they said about Michael Penix last year. And he came in, it was pretty good, but he's picking apart the defenses in practice. Like, that would be great to hear. That would be terrific. But I want it to translate into the depth chart. I think that that's a massive sign of belief in Jackson Dart. If we see that on paper, it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to see it on the depth chart. Because again, we know 10, 11 weeks into the season, if the Giants season goes to Dart is going to start. But early on in the season, Russell Wilson gets hurt. I still want Dart. I don't want Jameis Winston.
I do too. It's interesting you put it that way, Bryce. Maybe I have extreme blinders on, but I took everything that happened in OTAs and camp and all the rave reviews about Dart and seeing how many more reps with the ones Dart had started to get already, where it was kind of assumed after the draft, like, oh, we're going to fully put this guy in bubble wrap. It already started to feel that he wasn't. It's going to be something interesting to watch, right? The rep situation. I have been operating under the assumption, and that's why I didn't include on this list, that Jackson Dart will be the number 2 quarterback to start the year. Now, it'd be crazy if he just wowed and he had, ironically, a Russell Wilson rookie type of camp where he takes the job from a starter that you paid some money to. But yeah, like I'm with you, man. If you're in a game and Russell Wilson goes down, I think this is the question the Giants are going to have to answer. If it's week 1, week 2, week 3, and Russell Wilson pulls a hamstring in the third quarter, are you ready just to go, win or loss be damned, this is perfect time to get Jackson Dart reps? Or will they really, really take that carefully where, let's say, Dart is taking all the reps with the 2s in all week, but it's understood that Jameis Winston could just kind of roll out there and play, and he dresses as the number 2 early in the season. I don't want that either. To me, yeah, like I might be pissed if Dart goes in there and throws 3 picks, but like
whatever.
Winston might also do that. You know what I mean? So
would you rather see Winston throw 3 picks or Dart throw 3 picks?
Right. So I'm with you. As far as I'm concerned, if Russell Wilson ends training camp healthy, there is quite literally zero reason for me to ever see Jameis Winston in 2025 take a snap for the New York Giants unless it's a complete disaster injury-wise. Like all things being equal, health-wise for Jackson Dart, there's no reason for Jameis Winston to take a single starting snap for the New York Giants in 2025. Okay, so my last one, we're going to get to our number ones here right now. Very unsexy, but I think important to this team. I don't know if it comes the way of other teams having cuts. I don't know if it comes the way of the very young international player from Rutgers, Judd McAtamney. The Giants need to find a young kicker by the end of camp that can be relied upon. Graham Gano, I have love for a long time. I love you, Graham. I can't count on you to be healthy anymore. And we have had back-to-back years where the Giants have had a game and a week completely blown up by some kind of Graham Gano injury. Yeah. Obviously, the one this year with Washington was really big, but remember, they had a week like that the year before, too. Look, those leg injuries, how many times are you going to see him in a row every year? And he's obviously lost a little off his long ball, and Graham Gano has had a great career. He's actually been sneakily a very good Giants kicker over the last, kind of half decade or whatever.
I mean, dude, if you remember 2 or 3 years ago, everyone was saying Graham Gano was the best Giant. That wasn't
exactly. So I don't hate Graham Gano by any means, but I was stunned that the Giants didn't take a 7th-round pick and use it to select a kicker just to ensure they had one. And we know how these things are, right? Teams bring 2, 3 young kickers in. Maybe the Giants figure that. You know what? That's a position we can kind of evaluate who people cut. We'll see what Graham's health is like. I personally, if we're going to go into this with kind of a young team, I can't have another year where Graham Gano's hurt and we're trying to sign Randy Bullock off the street in week 4. I can't have it. Now, they do have this kid from Rutgers that kicked last year, and I know that he got benched at one point, Rutgers, but they've developed him enough. Like, maybe the Giants do see something in him, and that's McAtamney. Maybe they do. But ultimately, man, again, very unsexy because it has to do with the offensive or defensive side of the ball. But if this team is going to be playing close games, and you would think with their defense, you would play some tighter games. You had tight games last year. I can't see a game screwed up because Graham Gano got hurt mid-game, and we should have seen it coming. Give me a young, healthy kicker. So I would like to see them find one by the end of camp. That's actually my number one. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing, Bryce, because it shows I have a little more confidence in the roster all around.
Yeah.
That I'm ready to prioritize that special teams unit.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think it's very hit or miss with some kickers. You know, you saw what happened with Brandon Arbery being a soccer player, and then what was he in the AFL, whatever the hell they call that league?
Or the UFL or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. So you see
USFL.
These guys, it's make or break. It's a lot like relievers in MLB. Like you acquire them, you have no idea what to expect. You can kind of groom them into being a better player than they were when you first acquired them. So I think that's something that we could see from the Giants. And I like that. I wasn't thinking that far out of the box. My number one here, and this is kind of just for me in terms of being excited about this season and having hope for anything, and that's I want to see Abdul Carter absolutely dominate training camp. I want to see him dominate Andrew Thomas. I want to see him dominate Jermaine Illuminor. I want to see all that. I want to hear he is dominant. He's exactly who we expected him to be, drafting him number 3 overall with the comps to Micah Parsons and yada yada yada. All of the pomp and circumstance that came with taking that sexy pick in Abdul Carter, a guy in which people think, and a lot of pundits, a lot of fans, media think was the most talented player in the draft. I want to see it. I want to hear about it. I want to see it. And I really want him to become the force of the force of nature that I think a lot of people expect him to be, and that we think he could be.
I like it, Bryce, because you know how training camp works, right? So you have obviously the local reporters that go out there, guys like us from WFAN go out there. But when everybody starts doing their national tours, visiting all the camps, right? Like back in the day used to be the Peter King Watch and all of that. I want to see anybody who visits this Giant camp come out of there talking about Abdul Carter.
Yep.
Now, Jackson Dart might be the sexy thing to talk about, Russell Wilson. But think about it, the number 3 overall pick, a guy at many points last year people thought would be the best player in the draft, if not Travis Hunter. It would be nice to see people leaving camp going, oh, my God, the Giants have what could be the best pass rusher soon to be in the NFL, like a Von Miller type player, just by owning. Now, The downside to that story by the end of camp is it could mean the offensive line's an absolute train wreck. And I think that is going to be the risk reward, right? Is that if Abdul Carter's having this insane camp, will we fully trust that it's his ability and not have panic over the offensive line? So I want to just make sure every Giant fan understands that. I think even a great Carter camp, unless it's just him in preseason games kicking ass versus other teams, there will be negative press about the offensive line that goes along with it. Is anybody talking about why nobody can block the guy? And it's a good thing if Abdul Carter's awesome. Not a lot of great offensive linemen can block Micah Parsons. So just keep that in mind.
Exactly.
Keep that in mind. But I just know how the Giant fan brain works. And I think that any positive about Abdul Carter, if it's coming from camp practices, is going to ultimately result in negative when it comes to the offensive line.
Yeah, you'll be talking positively about that on Evan and Tiki, and you will get plenty of callers saying, "Well, Andrew Thomas, what's up with him?"
No doubt.
Let me say this: I hope he dominates against Jermaine Illuminor. There you go.
Yeah, that's true. Although I want Illuminor to have a big year.
Yeah, but you'd rather him look bad against Carter as opposed to the best offensive line the Giants have had in years, Andrew Thomas.
So these are our three things we're rooting for by the end of camp. Next week, we're going to do a podcast. The first practice, I think, is Tuesday. So maybe Bryce and I will break it down on Wednesday or something like that. Kind of any storylines that come out of it or anything else that pops to our brain. Like there could be something that happens in a Tuesday practice that is another offseason topic we wanted to get to. And, what kind of, maybe with that, Bryce, at some point over the next 2 weeks, maybe next week specifically, kind of give 3 or 4 5 guys we think could be surprise cut candidates as well, I think is in play, and will really set the scene here for training camp for the New York Giants, as the rookies have reported. And by next week, we will be in full practice mode. So again, download, subscribe to One Giant Step, because while they may be more in rhythm in the season and when we're dropping these, with the preseason schedule, training camp schedule, if there's a big brawl, maybe me and Bryce pop on and do an extra pod or something like that. Like they could come at any point and you won't know they happen unless you download and subscribe and get that a little alert to your phone. So that's really important. At Bryce Gelman on Twitter, at Shaun Morash on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. Enjoy basically your last week before just oversaturated tweets about camp practices.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking One Giant Step with us.